the Ron and Brian Podcast. Get ready to fill your ears with the latest news, politics, current events, and whatever else we feel like talking about this week. And now, your hosts, Ron and Brian.
Well, it's Sunday night. It's 8:30. 8:30, 8 o'clock.
8:30. Whoa. Is it 8:30? Because if it's 8:30, I'm going to take a nap.
I mean, it is. I'm on Brian time. It is 8 o'clock. Game Master Brian. Still have your name from last week's After Dark, where I once again could not be defeated.
Can we take a moment to acknowledge the absolute brilliance of Ron?
I will always allow that.
I'm going to take a time out. Okay. So as regular listeners to the show are I peripherally aware, but not acutely aware. So acutely aware, those people have already heard this story. Peripherally aware, you're hearing it now for the first time. We have on Patreon been doing a game once a month during our pajama party where our Patreon subscribers, our loyal friends, our family, correct, Ron?
Yes, I would say that.
Come on the show. I host a game that is called Can You Beat Ron? We've been doing this game for 3 consecutive months.
Yes.
Ron, let the people know how many times you've lost.
0 times I've lost. I would be 3 for 3 at this point.
The man is unbeaten. It is impressive. And this is a challenge. I'm going to lay out a challenge for anybody out there listening to this podcast. If you watch on YouTube, if you listen on Podbean, if you watch on Facebook, if you listen in Apple Podcasts, if you watch on Twitch. This time's got to stop.
Anyway, continue.
Sign up for the Patreon. Sign up as a bronze or higher. So you are paying $10 a month. Not a lot of money. $10 a month. Come on the show and just try and beat Ron next month in the December Can You Beat Ron Pajama Party contest.
All right. Well, clearly Brian's already started, but let's get things going with Drink of the Week.
Drink of the Week.
Salud.
Drink of the Week. Pleasure.
Drink of the week. Drink of the week. Drink of the week.
All right, Brian, what is it that you've already dived into for your Drink of the Week this week?
Listen, this is a beer that we talked about last year that has been sitting in my beer fridge. I've been digging into it. I've been trying to make some room. This is a beer that, Ron, you introduced me to about a year ago. Janelle, loyal friend of the show, you were able to obtain for me. This is the Yingling Hershey's Dark Stout.
And it's a low for a porter. It's a low alcohol. I think it's only about a 5 and change.
You're right. Correct. It's a porter. I will tell you this. I don't know, Ron, but I'm going to tell you this. It's a fucking great beer. Because this time of year, you don't want a lager. You don't want a Pilsner. You don't want a sour. You want something dark.
All
something that will. Okay. Hey, Ron, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
What do you got there?
So this week, I decided to hop on the Brian train and bring an IPA to the table. This is from the good friend at Breckenridge Brewery out in Colorado. This is their Hop Peak IPA. It is clocking in at a 6.5%. It is complex and aromatic with notes of citrus and pine. Hold on, let me get a sniff here. Definitely notes of citrus, not getting the notes of pine just yet.
Do you want to take it? Do you want to take another breath?
Getting the citrus, not the pine yet. But I'm drinking an IPA because we all want to be #be basic like Brian. Oh, I'm getting pine. That is a strong IPA.
No.
That is strong.
Are you telling me that be basic like Brian is going to be the next internet trend?
I think it might be. I think it very well might be. I'm torn as to this
Hurts my
IPA.
feelings. That hurts my feelings, Ron.
It's a little bit too piney for me.
Really? But you just said earlier that you couldn't get the pine flavor.
I couldn't get the pine scent. Definitely getting the flavor in the beer.
Now, as somebody who I believe does not chew on wood very often, how would you describe the flavor of pine?
Like the scent of pine needles. Imagine that as a flavor.
I don't think I would like that.
Hence my my issue with this IPA. I'm not getting the citrus
sorry.
either. You get the citrus in the nose, but I'm getting the pine in the taste.
Okay.
It is complex. Right. I will say, they say it's a complex beer. It's very confusing to me.
But you're someone that I would imagine could handle complex. Like I don't think I have the palate for complex. I think you have mastered the artistry of the ability for the minutia.
I mean, I'm gonna power through this beer. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying. It's not going to go down as one of my favorites. All right. Let's move on. We have a little this week in racism.
This
Week.
in
Racism.
racism.
So we are up to a page and a half of racism this week, Brian, after keeping it to a single page the last few weeks. Let's see what we have this week in racism. After dealing with years of racism within the predominantly white Pittsford Central School District, which is 8 miles outside of Rochester, New York, Victoria Love recently moved her 2 children out of the district to a smaller school after they were faced with repeated racist slurs. Pittsford schools are in the national spotlight following a recent New York Times article drawing attention to a series of racist incidents, including black soccer players being called racist slurs and subjected to monkey sounds at a game, repeated use of the N-word from white students towards their black classmates, and in September, a social media video surfaced which shows a white Pittsford student with a toy gun in hand claiming he wanted to kill black people. The Pittsford Board of Education recently appointed Vincent French, who is black, to serve as coordinator of equity and inclusivity. A star black athlete in New York left his high school after an assistant athletic director told him he became fast by running from police. Tony Humphreys, who was already committed to play baseball at Boston College, said that the incident occurred after he joined Iona Prep's track team. The assistant AD asked him why he joined the team, and when Humphrey said that it was to gain speed, responded that the team, quote, gained that speed by running from the police. After the 16-year-old junior informed his mother of what was said, they decided he would transfer from Iona Prep to a public school near their home. Iona Prep declined to identify the staff member involved, but announced the individual had resigned. Former residents and descendants of a black community that was literally wiped off the map to make way for parking lots at the University of Georgia want their issue to be heard. The neighborhood was called Linentown, and it was once part of the city of Athens, which is situated just over 70 miles northeast of Atlanta. The city of Athens used eminent domain to force 50 black families out of Linentown on behalf of the university. The residents of Linentown were given as little as $1,450 for their seized properties. More than 50 years later, a group of fellow former residents and descendants of residents created the Linentown Project to memorialize the lost community and urged the city to recognize and provide redress for the loss. However, members of the group have said that while the county is willing to make amends, University of Georgia officials have been dragging their feet. This is not overly surprising, as the school's Board of Regents recently rejected a proposal to change the names of 75 buildings it owns that are named for former slaveholders.
No way.
That's
terrible. Fuck that school.
A former police officer in La Mesa, California, allegedly lied on a report to get a black man arrested. Matthew Dages is on trial for lying on the report in the arrest of Amari Johnson in May 2020. Dages was taking part in a fare compliance operation with other officers at the nearby trolley station and alleged in his report that he initially contacted Johnson for smoking in public and failing to have a trolley fare while being in a fare paid zone. Deputy District Attorney Judy Tashner told an El Cajon jury that Johnson was holding a cell phone and that no lighter, cigarettes, or other smoking implements were found on his person following his arrest. According to Tashner, Dages confronted, detained, and arrested a young man who had done nothing wrong, and then he lied about it in his police report. Dages is charged with a felony count of filing a false police report, and if convicted, could face up to 3 years in prison. And a viral video shows the moment a white woman and her son called the police on a black employee for allegedly trespassing at an apartment building in Nashville. In the caption of the video, Martinez explains that on the evening of November 27th, he was doing his job checking for car permits at the River House Apartments. He said a woman and her son confronted him and accused them of following him around earlier. According to the man, quote, the first words that came out of the Karen's mouth were, "You don't belong here. How did you get here?" She and her son continued to berate Martinez, telling him he didn't live at the apartment and that they were going to contact the police. Martinez waited for the police after the encounter and filed a police report. He plans to file charges with the district attorney against the son who attempted to strike his phone out of his hand. And we also have one story in Racism Rewind.
Racism Rewind.
And a former Ohio sheriff's deputy has been charged with murdering Casey Goodson Jr., who died in the doorway of his home after being shot multiple times in the back. Jason Meade is charged with 2 counts of murder and 1 count of reckless homicide in Goodson's death, according to an indictment released Thursday. An autopsy determined that Goodson was shot 6 times in his torso, with 5 of the bullets entering his back. Civil rights attorney Sean Walton, who represents Goodson's family, also filed a federal lawsuit against Meade and Franklin County. Goodson's estate calls Meade a religious zealot in the lawsuit, saying he derived pleasure from being engaged in physical combat. Meade once preached a sermon in which he appears to justify police brutality as a biblical principle. And that, my friends, is This Week in Racism.
I was going to say that right before we hit the Racism Rewind that it wasn't that bad. And then when we hit Racism Rewind, I realized, yes, it is that bad. We have a problem, America.
Yes, without a doubt. We also have problems, each of us, and we tell them to you in a little segment we call Beef of the Week.
Ron and Brian's Beef of the Week.
Brian, what's bothering you this week?
Listen, I know we're going to talk about it later. I'm not trying to steal the thunder. I'm not trying to redirect the show, but it is America's gun culture. There was a incident earlier this week where I believe it was in Michigan, where a student came out of a restroom or his classroom with a automatic handgun, killed 4 of his classmates, injured another 7. This kid was 15 years old. I'm not going to give his name. Fuck him. His parents tried to flee arrest because they were the ones that bought him the gun, even though he was underage, and they gave him the gun. And my beef of the week is the fact that we in America are going to look at this and all shake our heads and say, oh, this is a shame, thoughts and prayers. But at the end of the day, absolutely nothing is going to change, and we are only going to have another incident like this. It is only a matter of time.
All right, that is
of all the personal offenses that took place to me this week, none of them even compare to the issue I have with this country's inability to deal with gun violence.
Fair enough. I will not take that away from you.
Ron,
shame you. Yes,
Ron, what's bothering you?
My beef this week, I guess we're both taking on the big items of the country. My beef this week is with the healthcare system in the United States. As we have discussed previously, my mother has been battling cancer this past year. we had an opportunity to go visit her last weekend. On Sunday, something happened. She was in a tremendous amount of pain, needed to go to the ER. So went to the ER, was in the lobby of the ER for 7 hours. So not being taken care of.
Are you
brought into the ER, where she then spent the next day and a half sleeping 2 nights in one of those little areas of the ER, not the actual, not being able to go and get a hospital room. So 2 days, finally 2 days into this, she gets a room at the hospital. They're treating her for her pain. They're treating her for a heart condition that she has. We are attempting to get her cancer treatment started again. But because she is on Medicare and because she is in the hospital for pain and a heart condition, Medicare will not allow, or will not pay, I say, for her cancer treatment to start back up, because that's a double treatment in their mind, even though the cancer is what is causing the pain that has put her in the hospital in the first place.
So according to Medicare, she's only allowed to be treated for one thing at a time.
Apparently, you can only have one illness at a time. And so otherwise, you're out of luck. So
America.
We've been battling to try and get her into a cancer center, or try and get her moved to another facility. Because that's the other thing. Her doctor, her oncologist, was not part of the medical system at the hospital that she went to. So he was not, he could not order medicine. He could not order scans. He could not order tests. Now, mind you, the reason that we went to this particular hospital is because it was where she was going to get the best care, though. We were in the rehabilitation center where she had gone after her last hospital visit. And so the head nurse, and calling the ambulance was like, these are your hospitals you can go to. I wouldn't recommend hospital A because they tend to kill their patients. Hospital B, they have a habit of killing their patients as well. Hospital C, kind of 50-50. And then hospital D, hopefully we can get her in there. So it's like,
hold on, time out.
Yes.
You're telling me that a nurse sat there and said, don't go to this hospital because they kill their patients?
Yes. And what she meant by that is that they don't kill all of their patients.
No, but there's just a high law.
Yeah, this is the impression of these hospitals in the minds of some of the healthcare workers in that area.
Jesus Christ.
So at least, thankfully, she was finally admitted to the hospital. They did get her pain and her heart condition under control, and she has moved back into her rehab center. Because if she does not get into the cancer center, we will need her to be able to, she'll need to go through enough physical therapy to get out of the rehab center to get into her home, which then she can resume her cancer treatments. Or I should say they'll be covered by insurance at that point. So it is absolutely.
I have, oh, no. It's upsetting. That is very upsetting. And I can imagine, but a lot of people have reached out to me and said, Brian, how can we help Ron's mom? What can we do for her?
Have they? Okay.
Yeah. A lot of people have reached out to me.
I'll go with it.
And what I've said to them is this, and this is something I've spoken to Ron just earlier today about, and he's on board with it. And I think it's great. For the next 30 days, everybody that signs up on our Patreon at a gold level or higher, half of the proceeds of your monthly Patreon subscription will go directly to Ron's mom. People have said, how can I help this woman? And I spoke to Ron, and we were just, this is the right way. Gold or higher, all people that join this month on Patreon, half of the proceeds for however long you're on Patreon go directly to Ron's mom.
All right, very good. Speaking of healthcare, of course, we still have the coronavirus.
Did you just like slide right on to the next thing?
I was getting a little overwhelmed with emotion, so I felt, in being the professional that I am, just trying to like plow forward.
I respect that, Ron.
So Omicron, we talked about it last week, as being the newest, hottest variant in this pandemic. And now it is starting to pop up across the United States, including at least 5 cases reported in the New York City area.
Okay, Ron.
Yes.
Let's talk about my real beef of the week, which is anime conventions.
Okay.
Now, during a pandemic, do we really need to have an anime convention in Jacob Javits Center in New York to host 30,000 people over a 3-day period of time to talk about their love of Japanese cartoons?
I mean, are we really free if the anime community can't get together? Are we truly free, Brian?
No. I thought I had an argument and you just shut me down, because the proper answer is no. The anime fans need to be able to express their love of Japanese cartoons. And the only proper way of doing that is in anime conventions, 30,000 strong over a 3-day period of time. And it has turned out to be a super spreader event for the Omicron variant.
So there was a gentleman apparently from Minnesota who had attended this anime convention that went on from November 19th to the 21st. He was fully vaccinated. He had received a booster weeks prior to the convention. We do not have word as to which vaccine he had received, but he did test positive. And of the 30 friends with whom he attended the event, 15 of them also tested positive for the coronavirus.
It doesn't sound good, but one of the things that I read earlier today about this Omicron variant is that it seems to have picked up some of the genetic coding that is similar to the common cold.
Okay. And how does that impact things?
This is the explanation of the article. I've read it in a couple different places, so this isn't just individual sourcing. But what they're saying is that the Omicron is really a lesser version of Delta in terms of severity. So what they're saying is that from a genetic perspective, part of the Omicron in terms of the mutations and whatnot is it literally has some of the DNA portions from the common cold. Their theory is that somebody who had the common cold at the same time also became infected with coronavirus, so that the two viruses mixed, ending up in the Omicron. What they're saying is that the symptoms of people who have tested positive for Omicron have been more mild than previous versions, Delta,
Mu,
Beta, Alpha, the original version. And we all remember how bad that first wave of COVID was here. I mean, in New York,
it struck New York City hard.
Forklifts, refrigerated trucks.
Yep.
What they're saying is that Omicron, what it looks like, it will be a fast spreading variant of it, but it will be nowhere near as damaging as Delta.
Okay. Well, hopefully that'll be the case. Hopefully it will not be as bad as people were initially predicting when it came out. This is before we brush over the anime convention. Billy's comment here, where he worked in a movie store that used the slogan "Orient yourself to anime." I feel like that's going to go over well. In this day and age, I don't think you'd be able to make that statement.
I believe that's problematic, Ron.
It's somewhat problematic.
It's a little problematic.
Do we have a problem with Billy for having worked there? Is he problematic now as well?
No, because he did not say that he used that slogan. He said the movie store he worked in used that slogan.
Fair enough. Yes, even though we're still deep into the pandemic, people are still trying to fake their vaccination records, and a Maryland man is now facing federal charges over allegedly distributing over 600 fake COVID-19 vaccine cards. Amar Shabazz, 23, allegedly bought the cards through a foreign online marketplace and advertised to sell them on several social media platforms. for $75 a piece. Selling a lot of them. He ordered apparently 800 cards. And the U.S. Customs and Border Protection kind of tracked him down and arrested him. Interestingly,
Wait a second.
Yes.
No, keep going.
Oh, interestingly enough, this gentleman also has served jail time for possession of child pornography. So a real upstanding individual. He now faces a possible sentence of up to 20 years each for mail fraud and obstruction of justice if convicted in the vaccine cards case.
So this guy just decides to go onto the dark web and buy Chinese fake vaccination cards?
Well, he bought, so basically, I mean, he bought fake CDC vaccine record cards. Yes, and got them. I mean, they're not saying they're from China. They just said it was, from a foreign marketplace.
Okay.
China.
The gold standard. I think we all know. I mean, from all the different articles we've read over the past year since the vaccines really come out, that the only way to properly run off a fake vaccination scam is you need to have somebody who is working on the inside to enter that data into the state computer systems to validate the information on the card.
And do you know of any such individual like that?
Maybe I do. Maybe I don't.
Now, here's a question for you, Brian, because we talked about Aaron Rodgers a couple of weeks back. This past week, and Antonio Brown was suspended for allegedly attempting to get a fake vaccination card. So people are wondering why he has served a suspension, whereas Aaron Rodgers, who seemed somewhat misleading about his vaccine status, only received a $14,000 fine.
One is racism. Aaron Rodgers being white, Antonio Brown not being white. The other one is the fact that Antonio Brown is kind of washed up on the downswing of his career, and we are struggling to figure out whether he's relevant or not. Whereas Aaron Rodgers could literally capture a TV crowd on a Sunday night game just by showing up and playing.
All right. You might have something there. Also, our favorite doctor, Dr. Fauci, said last week that he would absolutely support a 9/11 style commission to investigate the U.S. response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Good idea or bad idea?
I think that the actual investigation from Congress should not be necessarily focused on the U.S. reaction to it, because I think it's pretty much established that we did a very poor job defending our country from a pandemic. But I think that the congressional level investigation that should take place is on the origins of COVID-19, as well as the Chinese reaction to containing it.
But you don't think there's a value in determining how we as a country could have responded better?
Oh, I think that is the third part of the trident. I think that only looking at it from the perspective of what could we have done differently is really missing the larger picture, which was, how did this thing take place? Let's ensure we know how this thing took place. Then, could somebody have done a better job to ensure that it did not become global? Like, could this have been kept locally? After that, once we acknowledge that this thing had become global, then I think we need to figure out, how did we do as a country in terms of responding to it?
Well,
I mean, personally,
yeah. No, go ahead. You were going to say.
I was going to say that we looked at it at a global level, we looked at it at a national level, but if we really want to drill down and look to it at a local level, right as the dreaded first wave of COVID-19 was striking through America, I decided, if we really want to go granular, I decided that I was going to embrace the vaccine. I was part of the first wave to get COVID-19. I sat there hiding indoors while I watched refrigerated trucks being filled with corpses because the morgues were overflowing. I saw the forklifts taking bodies out of hospitals because there was no other way to do it. And I think that if we're going to look at the trident of where it came from, could it have been contained? What was our response? I think we also need to look at the heroes.
Now it's no longer a trident because you have more than 3 parts.
Do you dare want to call it a quadrant?
I mean, first of all, impressed at the coherency of your argument at this point, and B, also impressed that you knew a trident had 3 prongs to it.
Your lack of faith in me is in one part endearing and another part kind of insulting.
Understood. I mean, I guess before we leave the COVID arena, we also need to talk about our dead anti-vaxxers of the week.
Dead Anti-Vaxxer of the Week.
Now, Brian, this is a gentleman that you brought to my attention as your dead anti-vaxxer of the week, Johan, and you probably can pronounce that last name better than
Biacek.
He is your choice for dead anti-vaxxer of the week. Tell us why that is.
Okay. Now, we all know about Johan, as my friends call him, Johan Biacek. He was very popular in terms of his online posts of late. This man was absolutely opposed to understanding and accepting the severity of COVID-19. This man absolutely, and he's from Austria, so there's a little Nazi there. I mean, I think we have to accept and just on the surface acknowledge that there's an inner Nazi in this man's blood, in his DNA, the way he thinks. But as earlier in November, he admitted himself into a local hospital, an Austrian hospital, checked himself out within probably less than a week, because he did not believe that the treatment he was receiving in the Austrian hospital was up to snuff. What he wanted was a treatment of chlorine dioxide, which is administered enema style.
Interesting.
He wanted the chlorine dioxide administered enema style. Now, Ron, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Have you ever had an enema?
I have not. No, that is one thing I've never.
Me neither. But you know who wanted one? This man right here, Johan Biacek. He wanted an enema filled with chlorine dioxide because he felt that was going to cure his symptoms of COVID-19. And you know what happened, Ron?
What happened?
Oh, he died 2 days later.
That would make sense.
He refused to acknowledge that the vaccines were out there. He refused to acknowledge that this was a dangerous disease. He believed in the various levels of homeopathy, which we started last week, and this man is now dead. So, Johan Biacek, we wish you well. Fair adieu at age 61. And for the 6 million Jews that died during the Holocaust, we say bye-bye.
Well, that is an impressive dead anti-vaxxer of the week.
Top it, Ron. I challenge you to top it, Ron.
If I may, Brian, if I may bring to you a gentleman by the name of Marcus Lamb, looking very much like a 90s drama villain in this photo here.
I love the mustache.
He was the co-founder and CEO of the conservative Christian Daystar television network. He vocally opposed COVID-19 vaccines, and he has died at the age of 64. After he contracted COVID-19. This apparently happened in late November. His son filled in for his father on a November 23rd broadcast and asked the listeners to pray for his father's recovery from COVID-19. He said, quote, "Pray specifically for his lungs to clear the COVID pneumonia and pray for his oxygen level to continue to be strong and to go up so that we can wean him off of oxygen and bring him home. I don't know if it was a lack of faith or a lack of prayers, but surprisingly, none of that worked, and he did pass away. His son also described his father's COVID infection as a spiritual attack from the enemy to take down Marcus Lamb. This network has also dedicated hours of broadcast to anti-lockdown and anti-vaccination activists and groups. And in July 2020, the Lamb family devoted an hour of their broadcast to censorship around the COVID pandemic. So let that soak in. They talked about censorship on their world broadcast that they had an hour to give, but they were censored.
But they spent no time on his inability on his left-hand side to connect his mustache to the Fu Manchu. That was just like nobody sat there and was just like, you're going strong on this side. Excuse me. You're going strong on this side, but let's see what can you do over like that needs to be discussed.
Well, clearly there was not enough prayer for his lungs or for his beard. And so Marcus Lamb dead at 64.
Ron, Marcus Lamb looks like Hans Gruber's younger brother.
He looks like Elon Musk in an alternate universe.
He looks like the kind of guy that would give you a prostate exam, even though he was sent in to check your weight.
He looks like Martin Cove, Kreese from Cobra Kai, playing an evil villain preacher.
He looks like the kind of man who would tell young children that he has candy in the basement.
He looks like he is about to sell you Medicare insurance that won't really cover what you need.
He looks like the kind of man that would offer you a 3-for-1 deal on his American-made pillows.
I can't top that one. Can't top that one at all. So Marcus Lamb, you are our dead anti-vaxxer of the week.
Dead Anti-Vaxxer of the Week.
This week, we had some good ones.
This week, it's up.
We had some good ones.
It's up and down some weeks. This week was a pretty solid week in Dead Anti-Vaxxer of the Week.
You know who that guy looked like? And I know we already moved on, but he looked like the guy from The Golden Child with Eddie Murphy.
Also a good call there. Also a good call. In addition, as Brian mentioned earlier, we had another high school shooting. This taking place in Michigan.
Thoughts and prayers. 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 Thoughts and prayers.
This has got to stop.
Appropriately, both shooting and Brian has to stop. So a 15-year-old boy was charged Wednesday with murder, with terrorism and other crimes. The teenager Ethan Crumbly was
no. Don't say his name. Do not say his name.
He is going to be charged as an adult with all of those charges after killing 4 of his classmates, wounding 7 others. In addition, his parents have been arrested and charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter because they purchased the gun for him. They did not secure the gun. They provided him with ammunition. There was a time a couple of days prior to the shooting where the boy got in trouble in school because he was looking up ammunition on his phone, and his mother literally texted, "I'm not mad at you, LOL, just learn not to get caught." The parents were called to his school the day of the shooting because a teacher had discovered a very disturbing letter from the son. The school said that they should get their son into counseling in the next 48 hours. They encouraged them to take their son home. They did not. And so the son went back to class with the handgun in his book bag, pulled it out, and went on his shooting spree.
Um, the fact that this has become normalized, the fact that we all, and when I say all, on the left and on the right politically, the fact that we all accept that not only did we fail to stop this happening as a society, but the fact that we are going to fail to do anything to prevent it from happening again is such a it's such a painful realization about who we really are as a country. You
Yeah.
know, you wake up, you go about your day, you interact with a lot of really good people. You feel that, you know, as a group, as a larger group, we're pretty good. And then something like this happens, and you know, we're not even having the conversation of what can we do to prevent this from happening again, because we've all given up. We've all accepted that there's nothing that can be done to prevent this again, that this stuff is just going to happen and happen and happen. And our reaction, instead of ensuring that this doesn't happen, is to figure out, how do we do a better job teaching safety drills in schools? How do we ensure that students during an active shooter situation do a better job protecting themselves, rather than figuring out what we can do to avoid active shooter situations in school? But we've all just accepted that this is going to happen, and we're powerless to stop this. Fuck, man, it takes away my my whole desire to live.
Well, and you know, and this is how bad the climate is. U.S. Representative Thomas Massie, who represents the state of Kentucky, on Saturday, just a few days after the shooting, posted this Christmas picture of himself and supposedly his family, smiling and posing with an assortment of guns. Now, Representative Massie has long proven himself to be a complete and total asshole. But
his message with this photo, his message on this photo, I think it was on Twitter, was, "Dear Santa, bring ammo."
Yes.
This was a lighthearted comment about his request to Santa for a gift for this coming Christmas, is to be surrounded by his entire family with assault rifles. And I think there's a shotgun in there. This country literally is broken in half between people that want to kill and be graced by the law in saying that they can get away with it, and people that want to live in existence where we don't kill each other. And frankly, it feels like the people that want to kill are in control of the laws that are passed in this country.
And
Really
Democratic U.S. Representative John Yarmouth, who is also from Kentucky, retweeted this with the very appropriate statement, "I promise not everyone in Kentucky is an insensitive asshole."
My God, it's just like, it's so fucking heartbreaking that this is America. Like, you and I talking and our views is America. And at the same point, this photo is also America.
I look at this photo and I see a number of shared chromosomes and small penises.
I look at this photo and what I see is a patriarch who has instilled his fear of others onto his entire family.
I look at this and it looks like he's trying to start up an LL Franks and Beans catalog.
I look at this photo and I see children that were abused as children.
Again,
allegedly.
I can't beat that one. You have topped me yet again, my friend. What else do we have this week?
This shit, I gotta say this, all joking aside, that school shooting, I feel like there was something really different about it from other, because previous school shootings was students who had stolen the guns from their parents. This one was taken up a notch because this one, the parents had actually gone out and bought this weapon for their 15-year-old underage child who was not legally allowed to have this gun, and then he went out on a murder spree, and nothing's gonna change.
Right. No, I mean, I hope the parents go down for this. I hope they are prosecuted the full extent of the law. I like how, after they were charged, they disappeared and they took $4,000 out of their ATM. But their lawyer was like, no, they were going to turn themselves in. They were just getting their affairs in order.
I'm surprised that they had 4,000 in cash.
Apparently, because a few days prior to the shooting, the husband was filed suit for like thousands of dollars of back child support from a previous wife or girlfriend or whatever.
Which is interesting because I couldn't tell which way he was looking.
You know what is also interesting? I read somewhere that the parents' lawyer was also the lawyer for former U.S. gymnastics doctor Larry Nassar.
No, they went out and got Nassar's lawyer.
They did, yes.
PR disaster.
I understand when you're a lawyer, like, innocent till proven guilty. But if your resume includes trying to defend Larry Nassar, maybe you see something like this and you're like, you know what? I'm going to sit this one out. I'm not that big of a money grubbing whore. I'm going to sit this one out.
Wow. Okay. I hope this couple goes down. I hope they go down hard.
Yeah, I agreed. Brian, can I say one thing to you? Because you're not only doing okay, Brian, you are doing fantastic yet again with our NFL lock.
Stop.
Let's look at this weekend. I mean, today, you liked Miami minus 2.5 against the Giants. You're like, you're not going to lose betting against the Giants, and sure enough, Miami wins 20-9. And then you had the Colts -7 at Houston. Indy coming up huge, winning that game 31-0, bringing you perfect, continuing your perfect streak for the year.
Sure.
How do you do it?
No. This is not about how do I do it. It's basically the idea is the fact that you look at the list of games and you just say to yourself, oh, this seems so clear. This is so obvious. Oh, yes, there's no way that this isn't happening. Ron, my question to you is, how do you do the exact same thing?
I mean, it's a gift.
Earlier today, you looked at the line Raiders -2.5 over Washington, and you sat there and said, no. None of us like Dan Schneider. A despicable human being. None of us like the Washington football team. Despicable nicknames over time. But will they challenge this week? Yes. Will they need the 2.5? No. Will they win the entire game? Yes. Washington wins 17-15. Also, conveniently for a show that records 8:00 at night on Sundays, you decided to bet on the Sunday nighttime game. Denver Broncos getting 9.5 over the Chiefs. Ron, you looked at it, you chuckled, you said, challenge me. Once again, 2-0 for the 13th straight week. Ron, how do you do it?
You know what? I call them as I see them. And thankfully, that eyesight's been 20/20 so far.
Ron, who do you have this coming week?
All right, so this week, I like the New Orleans Saints. I'm going with your method of betting against New York teams. New Orleans is playing at the Jets. New Orleans -6.5. Book it. And then the LA Rams are going into Arizona. Arizona is giving 2.5 points. I'm loving the Cardinals. I'm thinking they're definitely a playoff contender. So take Arizona -2.5. Brian, who do you like this week?
Well, I wasn't so sure about the Jet game, but I do hate New York football team. So I'm going Chargers -7 over the Giants. And I also know that when it comes to Washington, I cannot trust them. There's no way that they're decent. Cowboys -5 over Washington. Book it. Go to Vegas. Bet everything you own. Absolutely no repercussions. It's my lock of the week.
All right. Since we are on the sporting ends of things, did you see, Brian, this video of the high school basketball game where the kid sucker punched his opponent after the end of the game?
I did.
So we're gonna share this for those of you watching on YouTube tonight. No audio with this, but we'll get a quick video going so you can see the two teams coming together at the end there, and then all of a sudden, look out! Here comes the punch in the stomach, punch in the face. The kid goes down. Down goes Frazier. Just some absolute brutality. We'll let this run through again. Clearly, some animosity there. It's being separated by teammates at the end of it. So that was the game between Nevada and Carlisle. Apparently, Nevada won 72-47. Apparently, that player from Carlisle High School, a little salty and attacking the kid afterwards. He was arrested and charged with a felony, and now faces up to 10 years in prison if convicted of the charge.
This is the issue. He didn't swing for the face. He didn't do the uppercut like everybody would have expected. This kid came in hard twice in the gut. Like, that player took two solid shots in the gut. That would have folded me. Absolutely.
Is it worthy of a felony charge?
Nowadays, why not?
Okay.
Absolutely. Why not? He sucker punched somebody and he assaulted somebody. How's what would you like? You want to call that a misdemeanor? To me, like when I was a kid and I stole a candy bar from a newsstand, misdemeanor. This guy punched.
You used to steal stuff? Is that what you're saying?
Only against corporations, never against mom and pop small businesses. Support the Cheesecake Lady in Northeast Philadelphia. Cheesecake Lady, www.com.
Brian, I understand you have a What Would Ron Do teed up.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. We haven't done one of these in a while.
No.
And I had an interesting moment earlier this week with my father.
Okay.
As many people know, my father is 89. My father is from a different generation. So he has not made the same advancements culturally that we have, because we are younger, we're hipper, we're cooler. So I've had to, on multiple occasions, explain to my father what a transgendered person is.
Okay.
He sees the name, doesn't understand it. He reads it in an article in the newspaper, doesn't understand it, asks, and I explain it to him. So earlier this week, my father and I are watching Jeopardy. Have you seen Jeopardy lately?
I have not, but I understand there was a transgender person on Jeopardy recently.
Amy Schneider from Oakland, California, is currently on an 11-game winning streak. She is transgendered. She was born into a male body, but has lived as a woman for many years. She tried out for Jeopardy. She made it through the different various testing rounds, and she got on the show. She won not once, not twice, not thrice, not twice, since ocho, nueve. Yes, y once. But she has gone on just a winning spree. So earlier this week, I'm watching Jeopardy with my father. They get to the part where Ken Jennings, who is now the current temporary host, is interviewing Amy Schneider in between that round of original Jeopardy. We like to call it in the game Jeopardy and Double Jeopardy.
Okay.
So now Ken Jennings is interviewing Amy Schneider on the screen. And my father yells out, "She's a tranny." Okay. Now, what would Ron do? Do I yell at my father for using the word tranny, or do I support him in the use of the proper female pronoun by referring to her as she?
Well, I don't know that you necessarily reward him. I don't know that you yell at him, but maybe explain to him that particular phrase is offensive for people that are transgender.
Okay.
I mean, I get what you're saying.
I did. I actually said you can't
Right.
use the phrase tranny. It's not okay.
No.
And he was like, "Oh, okay. I'm sorry."
All right. Well, then I think you handled it appropriately.
Thank you. But I did want to know from Ron's perspective, what would Ron do in that moment?
And you handled yourself well.
Thank you.
Now, let me ask, speaking of transgender, we had this story in the queue here. Leah Thomas, she is a 22-year-old transgender swimmer at the University of Pennsylvania. She's been shattering women's records at the school. Prior to her transition, she competed for 3 years at UPenn as a man named Will Thomas. At a recent meet against Princeton and Cornell last month, she had a times in the 200-meter freestyle and 500-meter freestyle that would put her in the top 3 in the NCAA Women's Championships. There is a lot of pushback against her because she is competing, against women, and people are saying this is. Some people are saying this is unfair. Your thoughts on this situation?
I am conflicted.
Okay.
I think over the history of mankind, the fact that biologically people who are born male have certain physical characteristics that are different than people who are born female. I just feel that mixing them into one group and expecting it to be competitive, I don't know. I want to say this person identifies as a woman and they compete as a woman, and as there's a part of me that feels that that's the way it should be, and I acknowledge the inherent unfairness in expecting somebody who was born as a with a female body to compete against somebody that was born with a male body.
And interestingly enough, that kind of mirrors a poll that Gallup took back in May of this year. 60% of Americans surveyed said that trans athletes should only be allowed to play on sports teams that match their gender at birth.
Yeah.
So
it's one of those where I don't think there's any room to win.
Fair enough. We do have some celebrity obituary to discuss before we get out of here this evening. We lost some big ones this past week, starting off with America's Got Talent star J.J. Phillips passing away at the age of 30. Reportedly from COVID-19. His family said that he was suffering from the coronavirus at home during Thanksgiving week, and then his health took a turn for the worst. His family told him he should probably check into a hospital. He said no, he just needed to sleep it off, and his girlfriend and mother later checked in on him and found him dead. Phillips was unvaccinated, but did say to his family before he got sick that he planned to get the shot.
How do you not start with Bob Dole?
Well, I think you lead up to, we start and then we build, because the second one, the big ragu, Laverne and Shirley actor Eddie Mecca passing away at the age of 69.
Nice.
Sure.
Best known for his role as Carmine Ragusa. Yeah, I mean, he was a legend in 70s TV.
Sure.
Wasn't really anything after that, though. Can you think of anything he was in?
Oh, I don't think I've ever seen him after Laverne and Shirley.
I'm looking through for some of his credits here, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of of post. Oh, he was in a League of Their Own, apparently, with a show, apparently. Young and the Restless, Bold and Beautiful. Apparently a bit on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Really?
Yeah. So we will miss you. Gragu. But yes, also leaving us earlier today at the age of 98, Senator Bob Dole, a son of the Kansas Prairie who was once left for dead on a World War II battlefield, coming back to become one of the longest serving Republican leaders and also a GOP candidate for president in 96, losing to Bill Clinton. Brian, you were a big Bob Dole fan. What's going to be your main memory?
When it comes to Bob Dole, I think the important thing about us is his accomplishments while he was in Congress. A lot of people are going to think of him and just remember the failed presidential bid. But this is a man who raised in Russell, Kansas. He was established a legal career before serving with distinction in the U.S. Army during World War II. President Gerald Ford chose Bob Dole as his running mate in 1976 after then Vice President Nelson Rockefeller withdrew from seeking for a full term. What Bob Dole accomplished in the U.S. Senate between 1969 and 1996, unchallenged in current American politics. You look at the way that man led the as chairman of the Republican National Committee from 1971 to 1973. He was the ranking Republican on the Agriculture Committee from 1975 to 1978. He was the chairman of the Finance Committee in the Senate from 1981 to 1985. And in November of 1984, Dole was elected the Senate Majority Leader, defeating Ted Stevens 28-25 in the fourth round of balloting. Over time in the Senate, Dole was seen by some as having a moderate voting record. During the 1970s, he partnered with Senator George McGovern to help pass legislation making food stamps more accessible. In December 1982, the New York Times referred to Dole as the changing from a hardline conservative to the mainstream Republican. That's rude. That's just fucking rude. You know what?
Yes.
If you guys don't want to be educated, if you guys don't want to learn, if your brains are shut off, man.
So anyway, Bob Dole passing away at the age of 98, providing 2 points in the Ron and Brian death pool to listener Samantha C. But not enough. Didn't move her up a place even. All the standings hold firm. Who is first in the Ron and Brian death pool right now, Brian?
Billy.
Well, technically it is me, but yes, since I cannot win, William Esquire currently sitting in first place.
No. Hold on a second. You're sitting. Let's don't extract yourself.
Well,
you are not eligible. No. You're not eligible for the first place prize, but you are still in first place.
Right. But as far as the money's concerned, William Esquire first, Andrew H., our champion last year, sitting 1 point behind. So we are down to the final 4 weeks of this competition. It's going to be interesting to see who can pull this out. And in the meantime, keep your eyes peeled. We will, of course, be running the 2022 Ron and Brian death pool. We will get that out shortly, and no cost to join, but fabulous prizes as well as bragging rights.
Let's not forget a year ago, technically 11 months ago, Andrew H. came on the show. He was one of the few non-celebrities, and I love the man. I think he is a celebrity, but he was not one of our scheduled interviews. The man came on the show. That is the prize for winning the Ron and Brian podcast Death Pool, is that you come on the show to discuss your strategy that helped you land in the number one place, as well as discussing what your strategy is for the upcoming year.
All right. Anything additional this week, Brian? We've covered quite a lot. We do need to get ready for the After Dark, which will be taking place in just a short 25 minutes. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, well, you know what you need to do. You need to roll on over to ronandbrianpodcast.com. In the upper right-hand corner of the home screen, click on Become a Patron. Join the Patreon. Ron's level or higher. You get access to the live After Dark every Sunday night. Brian, what else is there to be said that hasn't already been?
Can you take that bumper down? We've already paid $1.50 to StreamYard. Just no, put it back up. Let's do $2.25. This is one I'm covering it.
All
I
right.
will pay for it. $2.25 right now. Going to StreamYard. $3. We are spending $3 to let people know Ron and Brian podcast, support the show, help us out. Ron and I each every month pay out of our own pockets to ensure that we are able to deliver this high quality level of entertainment. The only way that people can say, hey, thank you, I want to be a part of it, is to join our Patreon. Click the link below, go to Ron and Brian podcast, upper right-hand corner, become a Patreon, subscribe. And the people that come in at the 50 or higher level per month, half of the proceeds per month for the next 6 months go to help Ron's mother.
All right, there you go. Well, thank you all for joining us this evening. For our Patreon folks, we will see you very shortly. Brian, anything else you'd like to end on?
Oh, I absolutely love you, and I love everybody that has stuck around for the past 67 minutes to watch this moment.
All right, love you too, my friend, and we will catch all of you next week.
Thank you for joining us on the Ron and Brian podcast. We're live each week on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. You can find prior episodes, links to our social media, and everything else Ron and Brian at ronandbrianpodcast.com.